Ms. Bennett, thank you very much for that testimony. I have a few housekeeping questions that we ask of all nominees, and I want to begin there before moving to 5-minute rounds of policy questions. So first, do you agree to appear before this committee and make officials from your office available to the committee and designated staff when invited?
I do.
Do you commit to keep this committee fully and currently informed about the activities under your purview?
I do.
Do you commit to engaging in meaningful consultation while policies are being developed, not just providing notification after the fact?
Yes, Senator, I do.
And finally, do you commit to promptly responding to requests for briefings and information requested by the committee and its designated staff?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Let me begin with the topic I wish I didn't have to begin with. I'd like to talk about campaigns against disinformation and how we objectively promote journalism about our own foreign policy ideas. But I want to start off with talking about the murder of journalists. This is not something that we should have to talk to. Jamal Khashoggi was a Virginia resident who was murdered in a state-sponsored assassination by the Saudi Arabian government. There still has not been accountability for that murder. I read accounts that the president may meet with the leaders of Saudi Arabia who have thus far escaped accountability. Within the last month, a prominent Al Jazeera journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, was killed by Israeli Defense Forces in Palestine. There have been significant murders of journalists in Mexico. We could go country after country. This is not unique to any particular left or right or kind of government. It's not unique to any continent, sadly. But we are seeing journalists increasingly under pressure, not just having their stories suppressed or editorial content blocked, but actually at risk for their very lives. What could the U.S. Agency for Global Media do to either provide some security or at least elevate this topic in the eyes of Americans and those around the world so that we might be able to protect people practicing the craft that you have been about for your entire professional career?
Thank you very much for that question, Senator, and I too wish it were something that we didn't have to lead this committee with, because it is clear that the situation, the security situation and the safety situation for journalists around the world is becoming just increasingly fraught, increasingly dangerous, and protecting those journalists, and not only those journalists, but also the audiences and sources that work with them, is got to be a high priority. And there's many things that are already being done to try and protect their security, but there are also many other things that can be done, including working on notification in digital security and making sure that we have the most up-to-date policies and practices.
I appreciate that. And I also believe that even in the selection of content, factually accurate but scrupulously focused attention to the situation of journalists around the world who are under any kind of pressure, certainly under any threat to their life, can have a way of elevating this in the mind's eye of the public in ways that could be helpful, and I would encourage you in that way. I don't need to kind of cite chapter and verse of challenges, but I will say, and you're certainly aware of this because of your recent service on the VOA, which is one of the things that I think makes you very, very well suited to this position. There have been challenges in morale in the employees within the USAGM. What steps would you take, using your background not only as a journalist but as a manager? What steps would you take to, slowly improve morale among leadership and staff within the agency?
Yes, thank you, Senator. And I take very, very seriously not just the safety of the staff, but also their morale. And one thing I found is even during the periods of the most deep, profound morale issues, there was still this hunger and passion for the mission. So the first thing I would do is make sure they understand that I share that hunger and passion, and that I understand what they're doing, and I want to help them do it the best possible way. And the second thing I would do is to make sure that the conditions at USAGM support them in their mission, and that everything we do at USAGM is used to advance the incredibly important work that they do.
Let me ask you this question. How do you approach, and again, your VOA experience is very valuable here, how do you approach these twin missions of USAGM being completely independent, trustworthy in delivering information, also advancing U.S. foreign policy interests? We want to do both, but we certainly can't sacrifice objectivity and accuracy for the latter goal. What's your philosophy about how you accomplish both those goals?
Thank you, Senator. I've never seen those goals as being in opposition. I feel that they're very similar, and that modeling the values that we hold as Americans in a democratic society of free press is really an extremely powerful message about the freedoms of a democratic society. So I find that modeling these messages and also bringing truthful news and information about the world and also about American foreign policy. We are, in some parts of the world, the only source of truthful and objective news about American foreign policy, about many subjects. I think that those two things are really very important and will continue to be so.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Before I hand to Senator Barrasso for questions, I'll just reflect to a time earlier in my life. It was Christmas of 1980, Christmas Eve, and I was on my way to what I thought was going to be a celebration of Christmas with Jesuit missionaries in Honduras, where I was working, but instead our car broke down, and the person I was with, we had to spend the night sleeping on a dirt floor in a one-room schoolhouse high in the mountains of Honduras. But we had a radio, and we could turn on Voice of America and listen to their Christmas programming. And other than everything else, it was the worst Christmas Eve of my life because we only had a can of peanuts to share rather than the dinner we hoped to enjoy with others. But Voice of America was the one bright spot of that very grim Christmas evening, and I'll never forget that, even though it was 42 years ago. So with that, I'll hand it over to Senator Barrasso.
Well, thanks so much.